Okay, well, we have Dick Grove. Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate it. How is life these days?
Started up a new one. Well, I had a public relations firm oh my God, international public relations firm for a little more than 30 years. So I sold it last July, found myself waking up on the July 8th with not a lot to do. So I immediately formed a new consulting company called Grove and Company, which is designed to aid small businesses in particular, and embryonic firms that need help in terms of developing strategic communication plans, how to get noticed, how to get their brand out there.
Wow.
It's what I am doing that's different is that I'm taking advantage of certainly over 40 years of experience in the communications and business, whether it be large PR and advertising agencies or on the client side, and then having my own firm for 30 years. But I've developed a raft of great resources over the years. So what I'm doing now is what in the old days would have been called a Rolodex firm, which
Yes.
means that I don't have a huge staff myself, but I have a great ability to find just the right kind of people to work on a particular project or solution. I can bring in just exactly whether they need something in the way of event production, whether they need something in the way of crisis communication, whether they need something just in the way of media outreach, which I'm certainly an expert in. So that's basically what I am doing now with Grove and Company.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And I'm actually really excited you mentioned that because we have a school community of 74 people as of today that are building their own digital marketing agencies.
Right.
And selling artificial intelligence, marketing, advertisements, website development, integrations, getting small businesses to the point where they no longer have to do things manually and they can integrate AI into their processes to make themselves so much more efficient. We're taking these 74 folks, and new people are joining every day. We've just only been doing this for about 3 months now, and getting each and individual business up to a maturity level where they're profitable and growing, right? There's a lot of communities out there that you can join that might have one or two tools or aspects that help business grow and build into something. But what I want to do, and what I found is missing in a lot of the other communities, is the complete package. You need a coach, you need a guide to be able to take you from an idea all the way to profitability. And what you mentioned sounds right up that alley and seems like you'd be a really good resource.
Well, I'd like to think that that after 40 plus years in the business, East Coast, West Coast, every kind of media and every kind of possible company, from large corporate clients to embryonic startups, even ones overseas, which we can touch on if you want to. But I think one of the great markets still is overseas-based embryonic startups that want to do business in the U.S. but can't really, one, don't quite have the knowledge yet, and two, they don't have the budget. Yes, reassuring is that knowledge is still valuable, and experience is still valuable. That when you're under 25, that doesn't mean you may be brilliant and you may have just graduated from Stanford and MIT and you got a great idea for a company, but that doesn't mean you know exactly where all the have a roadmap to know where the pitfalls are, which direction to go. That's where I'd like to think strategic communications and consulting could come in and play a role. And then to be able to draw on the resources that can solve the problem for you. I look at it much like a producer of a major film, that the producer's job is to assemble the talent, to have a vision and to assemble the talent, including a good director, and then be able to stand back but offer advice and counsel as that production proceeds. And that is something that I'd like to think after all these years I could bring to bear on a lot of different clients.
I think that's very valuable. Relationships is the key to sales, right? And building joint ventures is heavily invested on trust And you can't have the trust unless you've sort of put in the effort to build that relationship. And if you already have that, for somebody that's a embryonic business, like you mentioned, just starting off, they're out in this big world. They have zero testimonials, right? Zero feedback. They haven't actually done anything to speak of. And for them, they really just need that initial connection, that initial reference to be able to connect the dots to somebody who needs their services, or vice versa, services that they need themselves in order to become profitable. You mentioned overseas. Yes, half of our community is overseas. So what I've been doing is showcasing different tools
Right.
in technology on our YouTube channel, in addition to podcasts like this, where we meet amazing people from all over the world, and then tools that can help solve problems. And so when you put people and tools together, you tend to have some pretty good solutions. And yeah, I'd love for you to come speak to our group, right? See where you could essentially interview them, see if they're a good fit.
I'd
and they would
enjoy it.
ask questions. And I think that would be really good for them to just learn from your experiences and chat and get to know what potential opportunities are out there.
Well, I would love to have the invite. I can tell you that looking back, and you mentioned it earlier, the media, the marketing world, the landscape has changed dramatically, not only in the last 5 years, but certainly over the last 20 to 30 years. And AI plays such a different role today. And so many people, and I admit, including myself, don't totally understand the capability or where it really can take us. I do understand that what it is, if you look at it in the most simple terms, it's the accumulation of every bit of knowledge that's ever been thought of, okay?
Yes.
And to tap that kind of knowledge is just amazing. And as long as you bring the human side to it and not rely totally on the machine side of it, but if you act again as a overall producer, and that's one of the resources or talents that you can bring, and the idea that you can bring at least solutions that are presented, whether they're accepted or not, solutions based on accumulated knowledge within any field, is absolutely amazing and should be tapped. Absolutely should be tapped. And so
Yes.
that's one of the tools I now talk about, is that you need to take that into consideration. No matter what kind of field you're going to be beginning, you're going to be embryonically starting your firm in.
Yes. And if you can focus in on a particular niche, because AI is a very large concept right now.
Absolutely.
But if you were to maximize your efforts in learning a specific trait, then that becomes even more valuable, because then you become the token expert in that particular field. And this applies, like you mentioned, to just about anybody, small businesses, large businesses, whatever process you might have or idea that you're imagining right now, AI will have a really strong role in that in order to get to your solution. And a lot of the conversations, typically start, like we have one member, Ed, in our group. He runs AI automation consulting. And so he will join a team as a consultant, and they will go through line by line what business processes they typically follow. And part of it is helping the process itself become streamlined. Like maybe they have duplicate efforts, or, they're wasting a little bit of time. So streamline that, and then implement AI to automate majority of it, if not the entire process.
Right.
So now a business owner is primed to save hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary and tools and follow-ups and missed opportunities because of delays. And now you have this shiny new object, AI, that can essentially solve all of those problems for them, right? If it was implemented properly, for just a few $100 a month. So cost savings, opportunity savings, it's a no-brainer. It really changes a lot of businesses.
I totally agree. One of the things that we talked about internationally, one of the things I wanted to mention is that I've spent quite a bit of time developing companies that started elsewhere overseas. The idea of tapping AI even to help them is absolutely necessary. I've worked with companies. When we first started my company 30 years ago, we were working with companies in Israel, for example. Wonderful technology hotbed.
Yeah.
developing software and interesting kinds of products that could be sold in the United States, but really didn't know how to break into, and particularly the media, which had closed themselves off to almost any kind of thought of international companies that were doing great things. And that's changed somewhat over the years. One of my most recent developments has been in Vietnam. I've spent time in Vietnam. I actually now have family in Vietnam. But I have spent time over there meeting with entrepreneurs, and both in Hanoi and in Ho Chi Minh City, and where companies that are struggling to try and figure out how to understand to utilize the media. And the media, of course, is not just print, not just broadcast. The media is everything from social media to influencers to a lot of other kinds of things. And how can I harness that? And how can I afford it? And that's one of the things that I try to bring to it, is that there are means to afford both the technology as well as the experience of the U.S. in terms of gaining knowledge and building your brand, that you can do, and you can afford it, within reason, obviously.
You can absolutely afford it. Yes, because if you're this is media, what we're doing. If you build the content, which is more or less free. I mean, you need internet connection, maybe, right? Phone, if you have one, and you just hit record. And the content that you create is automatically pushed to the audience members that are most primed to view that content. Meaning that the users now on social media are being pushed the content based on their interests alone. So no longer are we relied on who you're subscribing to or, what particular hashtags you're searching for. It's the intent that you've already shared across multiple social media platforms that the algorithm will then determine that, hey, you're interested in AI because we're talking about it right now. And then, when you look at your phone, maybe a few minutes from now, it's going to show you advertisements on AI or show you how-to videos on high level, for example, on how to implement artificial intelligence. So the content is now finding the viewer. And so if you build your content, which is essentially free, so almost no cost to it, but just make it valuable, make it interesting, make it some kind of a value add, and then let the algorithm do what it does. And that's
Absolutely. One of the things that I find also interesting, Sonic, is the kinds of, after all these years in the business, I am still excited over new ideas. It never ceases to amaze me that somebody's got a little bit better way of doing something, or a brand new way of doing something that no one's ever thought about. One of the tenets I've always followed, believe it or not, and I do so very much now, was a saying originally by George Bernard Shaw, the Irish playwright, who later on was taken by Robert Kennedy, the original Robert Kennedy, not the one sitting in the administration.
Right. Okay, I got you.
But Bobby used to end his speeches with a lines that said, "Some men see things that are and say why. Others see things that never were and say why not."
Whoa, that's pretty cool. And exactly. Why not? If you're at the forefront, man, that would be really impressive. Please go ahead. I cut you off.
No, and that's basically a philosophy that I've tried to follow, and I find it so exciting that there are new ideas, and they could be coming, by the way, not just from the young crowd, but also from older people. I actually am starting a podcast myself that's going to be starting in January. And
nice.
It's called, are you ready? It's called Old People Rock.
Let's go. Old People Rock. I like it.
And it's designed to showcase and to interview people in their upper 70s and 80s that are still rock stars in their field, whether it be music, which is pretty obvious. There are rock stars still in their 80s, but also people in business, people in the arts, people that are just doing things interesting in their lives, and they're vital and interesting and so forth. And there are also entrepreneurs in their 80s. And I find that fascinating that, particularly in America, we tend to discount. Once you hit, there's a little bit of a thing when you fill out a survey, often in the U.S., and you have to put down your age category. It says 18 to 25, 25 to 40, or whatever it be. It almost invariably ends at 74 plus.
Interesting.
So what about the plus?
I know. It's like everybody else.
I mean, it's as if American business discounts that anybody over 75 is worth anything. And so that was the genesis for creating this website and having it be kind of like most things in my life. It's going to be full of humor. It's going to be a little bit, at times probably, I don't know. We're going to make fun of things, but we're also going to take advantage and look at people that are doing exciting things that are, in fact, still rock stars in their particular field. So while I love working with young companies, believe me, I do. And most of my clients over the years have been young companies, even when I was a young company. I still feel like there's a market out there, and I think it's kind of cool to be able to feature some of those people that are doing exciting things and that a lot of people forget about.
Certainly are. And there's many ways to be a rock star, right? It doesn't have to translate into financial success.
Exactly.
Like you mentioned, right? Social influence, just a cool story that you have. 74 plus years, you're talking about so many experiences, right? Even if you're one of those people that just stayed in one city for your whole life, you still have amazing experiences that people want to hear. I think that would be a really phenomenal podcast.
Well,
I'm
and
looking forward
many of them are good storytellers. By the time you get to that point, you've got a track record and probably a lot of experiences. Hopefully, myself and my partner in the venture can draw some of those stories out and help them tell the stories and make it interesting and so on. It's kind of a fun project, but I think it also has some value. It's one other thing that I'm trying to do where I'm not having to run a staff of 30 or 50 or 100 people, where I can pretty much pick and choose what I want to do at this point in time and be able to utilize my experience and so forth and still take it, understanding. I said one other thing that always sticks to me and the people that have always worked for me understand this is that I tell people, and it's an old saying, by the way, but I tell people, take your job very seriously, but never yourself.
There you go. I like that. And I think we probably have some folks in our community that qualify for your podcast.
Really? Okay.
Yes, certainly do. So you have what sounds like you're going to do a partner. So you and your partner are going to chat in this podcast. Is that the framework?
Right. We'll interview people. It'll primarily be me, but we'll be interviewing people, and it'll be audio in the beginning only, because what we've discovered is that through research is that at least initially, most of the people that are, in this case, 60 plus, they do listen to podcasts, and they do listen, but very few people spend the time to watch it what they'll do is on their mobile device, listen to it, or in the car, etc. So we're going to take advantage and do audio in the beginning. We may eventually do some video, but in the beginning, to get it launched and off of the ground, we're going to be doing.
Okay, great. And probably easier to call in because you just need a phone to call into the podcast, as opposed to setting up a webcam or having a laptop and, checking your background and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
Okay. No, that's cool. So why are we waiting till January? What's the crux there?
It's holidays. There's other things on my plate. I'm dealing with some prospects right now, developing some business lines and so forth. And so, it's still, even if you're quote unquote retired and you've sold your company, you still have a relatively busy day. So
yes.
And to do the podcast correct, I want to make sure that it's what it should be. So it's taken time to even develop the artwork and so forth. We actually have the artwork now. We have the URL reserved. We'll be doing our first trial run here within the next week or two. And then to get the kinks out, I'm looking at a date of probably around first part of January.
First part of January? So like between the 1st and the 15th of January?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And what is the domain that you guys purchased?
It's oldpeoplerock.com.
Whoa, that was available? That's so cool.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? But that goes to show you.
I know. I guess there's an untapped market that you're just venturing into and going, okay, well, if nobody else is taking advantage of this, I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And so if it's available, that's awesome.
I think it's a fun idea. I think it, I also find it serious from the standpoint that think people like that. There are a few podcasts out there, don't get me wrong, that address embracing your 80s or embracing your old age. But this podcast is not going to be what pills you need to take or what are your ailments or how to have a good vacation when you have a walker.
Right.
That's not what this is about. This is about success. It's about people that are still doing what I would call very cool things, very exciting things, and still getting a real enjoyment out of life and what they're doing, and not just kind of waiting for the Grim Reaper to come in the door.
Right. No, that's phenomenal. I'm thinking about folks that are still running ultra marathons, right? They're
Exactly.
like those types of people, extremely successful at business, for example. Maybe they have like a really large family and they're still the patriarch or the matriarch of their family running essentially a small village, right? And how do they do that? How do they juggle a bunch of things? There's so much potential out there.
You could walk up to, which we've done, by the way, and I've done, you could walk up to, and if you don't offend somebody, walk at any restaurant or any group gathering of older people. I'm not saying what age, but older people, obviously older people. You talk to them about what they're doing. You talk to them about the idea of developing a podcast where they would be interviewed or something like that. It's so amazing. They light up. Oh, you've got to talk to my uncle. You've got to talk to my, this. Oh, I think that's so cool. I mean, everybody has somebody that's doing something interesting that is not being recognized because of their age.
Nice.
And that's what, kind of made it exciting, was the finding out that anybody we've talked to said the same thing. Oh my God, you could talk to a bunch of little old ladies sitting there having tea.
Yeah.
Everybody said, oh
Yeah,
my God, that'd
exactly.
be so much fun. I'd listen to it.
Are you how are you getting your list together of these folks?
How am I getting basically just, by the way, one way is through AI, by the way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And also through some of my experience with groups that have those. What I'm trying to avoid, and too many people categorize it when you first talk to them, people have categorized it as, oh, this would be perfect with AARP or that kind of thing. And I'm not really, that's not what this is about. It's going to be fun and interesting.
Yes.
It's not going to be your tired and true, so the target, yes, to get the numbers and to go after them, we're going to be, and I've also got affiliated with an ad agency and so forth that has some demographics that can help us and so forth. So again, it's what I said from the very beginning. You draw on the resources that you've developed over the years. It's absolutely amazing, how people.
You're right. You probably have a Rolodex already.
I know where you can find these people. I know how this and that and so forth. And so you draw on all of it, The first part is just getting it finished. And as you well know, doing a successful podcast, is making sure the structure is correct, making sure your 2 or 3 trial episodes are together. There's a lot of trial and error in the beginning, and I'm sure you realize that, recognize that. Before we go too much further, and I have a very good, excellent guy that works with one of the podcast companies that's been advising me and so forth. So.
Okay,
We're
very
excited,
nice. Yeah, I'm excited for you.
Old people.
Anytime somebody mentions that they're going to go execute a plan, I start holding them accountable to that plan. It's kind of a flaw almost, and it kind of comes off a little bit abrasive sometimes, where when you say like, hey, I'm going to do something on January 8th, I start asking, okay, well, what are all of the tasks you're going to accomplish up until January 8th? Right? Because it's not going to be like, hey, the time is going to come, whether you're ready or not. January 8th, it's coming. And it's like, okay, well, what have you accomplished to set you up for that success? And it sounds like you're right on that path. I mean, you have the domain, you have a method to put your list together, you have a time frame of execution, you have the right consultants. So I think this is going to be a really, really nice success story. The generating of the list, we were talking about AI. I think that's a really good idea because it doesn't cost anything. These things are free, large language models, and you essentially search for the demographic, the criteria that you give it. and it will pop out a list of all of the folks that qualify to be on your podcast. And then you can just mass email them, or AI itself can just call these folks for you and then get them through a filter and then line them up on your calendar as well. If you're going to do a podcast, let's say once a week or whatever the case is, you'll have a calendar, and then it'll just automatically plug people in with the appropriate link. So all you have to do is, let's say Monday afternoon is your podcast day, you and your partners just jump in and then start recording. No cameras in the beginning. You said it was just voice. So it would just be a voice call, and then that would get recorded, either sent to your editor or just uploaded automatically. And then you kind of build your initial following from there. That could totally work.
Thank you. I agree, and I'm listening to I hope I'm still learning, and I'm even listening to you and learning more. So I appreciate your advice and counsel.
Oh yeah, I'm learning all the time. And what I like to do is, you mentioned, asking those why not questions. Right? And it's really,
absolutely.
Hey, just like you would have asked, why isn't there a podcast already out there that's called, Old Folks Rocks? And why isn't there a domain out there that does this? Maybe we have blogs, or we have highlights of folks that are doing this. And then you can have children and grandchildren nominate their elder folks within their community that are rocking things that need to be projected and highlighted, promoted. And so you might be onto something really big here, because this is like a movement almost, right? And there are other ones like that out there for sure. But what you're doing is phenomenal. And if you can niche down to rocks and defining like what exactly is the definition of somebody rocking it,
right?
I think that would be really cool.
You say it better. You say it better than I do. It's absolutely. I mean, and that's what I've had to define to certain people saying, well, old people rock. You talking about rock stars? And I said, I'm talking about rock stars metaphorically, okay? I'm not talking, it would be nice if we got Mick Jagger to be interviewed and talk about what he's doing in his 80s. But what the idea is, rock star being metaphoric to what people are doing that is really outstanding and still very cool, and that are still considered kind of outliers in what they're doing, and particularly because of where their age is irrelevant and yet relevant. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
you are.
That's really what's so cool about it. Is it's hard for people not to say, believe me, I've heard it a lot, is, boy, that's really great at your age.
Yes.
And well, I'd like to think it's great, period. And the fact that it's at a certain age you're doing that just means that adds a definition to make it even more interesting. But it shouldn't be defined necessarily by the age.
Of course. Right. It's just another qualifier that makes it that much more rare to see it at that. It's the same as like a 5-year-old that can write a dissertation.
Right.
Whoa, that's really impressive at your age. Lots of folks can write dissertations if you're in 30s or 40s or doing your doctorates or whatever the case is, but it's just a better qualifier.
Yeah.
78-year-olds don't typically run ultra marathons, but when they do, it's quite a qualifier, right? I think that's probably what they're getting at. And I think that's phenomenal. So when does this website go live? When can we start looking at the projections?
Well, like I said, I'll be making some announcements online, obviously, but we're looking at as a target the first week of January.
That's when the website's going to be live as well?
Right. Yeah,
okay.
Everything will be live. Okay. And, I'm live right now. I mean, I've got my new website is up and so forth. My Grove and Company website is up.
Okay.
My consulting work and so forth. So I'm one of those people that refuses to not say why not. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. If you send me your information, please, I'll put it in the description as well so people can find you. And then I will invite you to our community. Would love to hear you.
That'd be great.
And folks would have tons of questions, I'm sure. And then, you can promote your services there by all means. And I'm really excited about this podcast as well. Any parting shots, Dick?
No, just like I said, keep on moving forward. I believe very much that you can't stop. And I believe I've had a great career so far. I'd like to think there's still other things to be accomplished. I'm still out there riding a motorcycle. I'm still out there meeting people. I'm still out there getting up every morning and getting ready and excited over new things. What I say is learning how other people learn, how other people get other people to write them checks. You know,
Yes.
that's the definition of an entrepreneur to me, is when somebody's got an idea that they've created that gets other people to write them checks. That also dates me, by the way.
Sure. Yeah. No, I write checks too. I mean, they're still around. It's more on the business themselves that won't accept something. Like for my daughter's school, for example, they go on a field trip, you got to write a check. And I'm like, really? Well, I take it as a learning opportunity for my daughter and actually have her write the check. So now she writes it, pre-fills it, and then just brings it to me to sign, you know? And so it makes it a little bit more efficient. But I think that's phenomenal what you're doing, sir. I don't know if you qualify for your own podcast, but let me just say you rock. I think that's really cool.
Well, thank you.
And I'll look forward to your website and you joining our community as well.
Okay. I'll send you the additional information you've asked for, and I look forward to staying in touch.